Everything that happens happened because you wanted it to. Maybe Dogman is older, much older than we realise, created from the beginning, a biblical entity, and I'm not talking Nephilim, I'm talking long before. Welcome to the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. This episode is called the Dogman Particle. The different categories of Dogman, or descriptions of the cryptid. I am pretty sure if you're listening to this, you'll have a fair idea, and even like me, have more of a fascination. If not, previous YouTube videos and podcasts as to the phenomena I would recommend you to refer to, if you want an introduction to the lore of Dogman. But for this podcast, it is the matter of atoms and particles that currently are being put forward that intrigue me as to its existence. Thank you. Everything that happened because you wanted it to. Think about that a minute. In the soup song of debate surrounding the origins and existence of the cryptid known as Dogman, this statement may be the simplest, most obvious of all proofs that Dogman Enigma may just be the grand truth that we seek. We may not like the answer, but it should not stop us asking the question. There are certain traits in the documentation that follows a pattern. One such example is that of photographic evidence that seems to be somehow distorted or slightly blurred. Never a clear image has been made available for close scrutiny, regardless of the quality of the photographic equipment used. We view life as a reflection of light. The ancient Mayans believed on the surface of water or silver lay a portal, doorway into another realm. To be clear, light from our sun emits electromagnetic radiation in waves in the form of photons. We use the spectrum of light on a limited wavelength. Could it be that the Dogman entity manipulates those photons in some manner to distort and blur the images people have taken? Maybe even travel and move using this medium. Although photons have velocity but no mass, could light then create mass or influence mass around it? Photonic molecules. Most of the properties of light we know about originate from the fact that photons are massless and that they do not interact with each other. A research group at MIT changed that. What they have done is create a special type of medium in which photons interact with each other so strongly that they begin to act as though they have mass, and they bind together to form molecules. This type of photonic bound state has been discussed theoretically for quite a while, but until now it hadn't been observed. When these photons interact with each other, they're pushing against and deflecting each other. The physics of what's happening in these molecules is similar to what we see in the movies. For instance, lightsabers, where the light takes a mass and a shape. Researchers began by pumping rubidium atoms into a vacuum chamber, then used lasers to cool the cloud of atoms to just a few degrees above absolute zero. Using extremely weak laser pulses, they then fired single photons into the cloud of atoms. As the photons enter the cloud of cold atoms, its energy excites atoms along its path, causing the photon to slow dramatically. As the photon moves through the cloud, that energy is handed off from atom to atom and eventually exits the cloud with the photon. When they fired 2 photons into the cloud, they were surprised to see them exit together as a single molecule. The experiment I have spoken of was back in 2018. No further developments have been made, or at least published, concerning photonic bonding, to my knowledge, so far in January 2024 when this is done. That is not to say that the theory is not naturally happening in the real world at the moment, but without further investigation or results known, it has to be only a theory that this could be a valid explanation. I have researched extensively into photonic experiments, and I have a theory of my own, and ties together photonic amongst other rare particles, and the biblical accounts of Nephilim. I shall cover that later. So, thinking about this and the elusive nature of Dogman, let's take a look at some reasons why Dogman could have always been here: an angel, a demon, a jinn entity. Now, like the scientific theories for explaining the entity, the biblical explanations are conjecture, based on written testimony from history long ago. But they are also worth mentioning because they fit into the narrative of the scriptures and folklore accounts documented hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. Also, the cryptid Dogman has some odd behaviour that in the following accounts does lend itself to a more theological origin. Now, I have done a previous podcast on the biblical Dogman, as well as the folklore history attached. I will leave a link in the video description below. The literal meaning of jinn is to hide and conceal. The word jinn came from the word jana, which means to hide in Arabic. Interestingly enough, science tells of a particle with the same description as the one I mentioned for jinn. And this is xenon. Solid xenon belongs to the face-centered cubic crystal system, which implies that its molecules, which consist of single atoms, behave as spheres packed together as closely as possible. The name xenon is derived from the Greek word xenos, strange or foreign. Strange or foreign. That's an interesting translation for a very interesting particle. A crystal-shaped particle that we breathe in the air around us. Strange indeed. The chemical element Xe, or xenon, is colourless, odourless, non-pungent, non-toxic, non-explosive, environmentally friendly, noble gas. It is found in the Earth's atmosphere in trace amounts, as the concentration in the atmosphere is only 0.086 parts per million. Yet it is also found in the gases emitted by some mineral springs. Could this element, being 4.5 times denser than air, a rare element indeed, have an interaction with photonic consequence? Or are we putting too much faith in the light? Pardon any pun there. Maybe Dogman is older, much older than we realise. Created from the beginning, a biblical entity, and I'm not talking Nephilim, I'm talking long before. Personally, I'm not blinkered by my faith. It is sunglasses that help to reduce the glare of that bright shimmer that flows from a world of fire with a song of lies. Basically, I take the mainstream media with a large pinch of salt. And there was a silent bang. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. There was something else as well. Dogman. Okay, well, about 1 second after the Big Bang there was a particle, very important, very rare, the neutrino. But not any neutrino. But first, what are they? Why do neutrinos pass right through us but photons do not? Neither neutrinos nor photons have charge, because neutrinos interact extremely weakly with matter, while light interacts strongly with matter, especially the electrons. Neutrinos are massive, chargeless particles. In order to interact with normal everyday matter, they must essentially hit the very small space inside an atom that is not empty space. This is extremely unlikely to happen. Statistically, humans have their first interaction with a neutrino at around 5 years of age. This is quite small considering that millions of neutrinos are zipping at close on light speed right through your body right now. So unlike photons, which enable us to view Dogman, it is still reflecting light that has travelled a snadge over 8 minutes from the sun to get here. So to us, everything we see is new, happening now, at the moment. Actually, the light is 8 minutes old. So everything we see, we couldn't see 8 minutes ago. So could the light photons have picked up anything on its travelling for 8 minutes in the void of space? Relic neutrinos may be the Easter egg of the cosmos, the biblical blueprint particle, still able to interact with this realm. I quoted from Genesis in the Bible, in the beginning, and God said, "Let there be light." Well, there was something else too, the relic neutrino. Well, the cosmic microwave background radiation, CMB, dates from when the universe was 379,000 years old. Relic neutrinos date from 1 second after the Big Bang. 1 second after the neutrino particles scattered and are thought to cluster in the far reaches of our galaxies and include our own Milky Way. Detection techniques are in their early days for such a rare particle and will be detectable in pockets called overdensity pockets, but something so completely fundamental as a particle from 1 second after creation, it really could be a work of divine. Now, being that neutrinos have mass, unlike photons, I believe these particles have a coding, and maybe this coding, a quasi-quantum coding together with interactions with atoms, there is a more weighted literal projection coding of a Nephilim type that we call Dogman, and that may account for the decades, even thousands of years of visible and written accounts of a Dogman giant creature. Neutrinos are massive, chargeless particles. In order to interact with normal everyday matter, they must essentially hit the very small space inside an atom that is not empty space. On the other hand, neutrinos are matter, particles, similar to electrons, the major difference being they are the companions of electrons, or muons and taus, in various decays, to conserve symmetries and quantum numbers. And so maybe the blurring of the photos that are taken of Dogman is proof enough, the only proof at the moment. The reason I say that is because I have been talking about the fundamentals of life. Maybe our digital cameras can't clearly pick up the Dogman or other cryptids or ghosts. In the beginning I said one possible answer. Maybe you missed it. To the multitude of questions, But at the end of the day, perhaps only God has the clearest view, not our cameras. You have been listening to the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Please like, share and follow. Your comments matter. And check out my YouTube channel, Dogman Teepee Hunting. I will leave a link in the description.